I never thought I'd notice it at first. I mean, we're roommates. Two dudes sharing a cramped apartment in the city. You get used to each other's rhythms, quirks, and, yeah, occasional company. But one night, I realized something had shifted, and honestly, it freaked me out a little. So here's the background. I'm Mark, 27, working a lame office job downtown, and my roommate, Eric, is this chill, good-looking graphic designer. We've been sharing this tiny two-bedroom for about a year now. When we moved in together, Eric was the life of the party. He'd bring girls home almost every weekend without fail. I didn't care. He's my buddy, and I had my own things going on. But then, over the last couple of months, Eric just stopped. No more girls coming over. No more late-night laughs from the bedroom next door. At first, I thought maybe he was just focusing on work or had met someone new elsewhere. I didn't pry. I figured everyone hits a dry spell sometimes. What got weird, though, was what replaced those nights. Instead of Eric's usual late-night noise and door slamming, I started noticing him just watching me. Like, I'd be sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone or cooking dinner and I'd catch him staring. Not in a creepy way exactly, but enough that it made me uncomfortable. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was overthinking it, but then it got harder to ignore. He'd linger outside my door longer than necessary, or suddenly appear when I least expected him to, just to say something normal like, "Hey, how was your day?" But with this intensity that felt different. Last week, I was getting ready for bed when I caught him staring at me again, but this time, it wasn't subtle. His eyes held something curious and sort of vulnerable. I asked if everything was okay, half joking, but he just shrugged and said, "Yeah, just thinking." That's when I started wondering if maybe, just maybe, Eric's behavior meant more than I realized. Because watching someone like that isn't just about boredom or friendship. It felt like there was something under the surface, something unspoken. I can't say I'm exactly sure how I'm supposed to feel about it. Part of me wants to laugh it off, but the other part is tangled up and confused. I guess I'm finally ready to figure out what's going on, and maybe, in the process, figure out what I want too. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Eric stopped bringing girls home, and he started watching me instead. Now, I just don't know what that means, but I'm about to find out. The thing is, Eric and I have always been close, but never like this. We'd chill, joke around, talk about work or dumb stuff. But there was this new layer to his attention that I couldn't ignore. It was like he was trying to figure me out, and maybe himself, through some silent, slow process. A few nights later, I was on the couch, half watching some late-night TV and half not paying attention, when Eric came into the living room with 2 beers. He handed one to me without a word and sat down opposite me. For a minute, neither of us said anything. Just the quiet hum of the city outside and the occasional flicker from the TV. Finally, Eric broke the silence. You ever think about how weird it is? How you can live with someone for a while and still not really know what's going on inside their head? I took a sip of my beer and shrugged. Yeah, I guess. I mean, people don't walk around with "ask me" signs, right? He nodded slowly. True. But sometimes you wonder if you're the only one noticing the silence between words. That was oddly poetic for Eric, who's usually pretty blunt. I looked at him, waiting for him to say more. Instead, he just stared at his beer. I asked, "What's on your mind?" He sighed, leaned back, and ran a hand through his hair. I guess I'm just tired of pretending. Or maybe I'm tired of not admitting something I've been feeling for a while. My heart skipped, but I tried to keep my face neutral. Okay, I'm listening. Eric looked up, eyes locking with mine, and for a moment, I thought he might say something totally unexpected. Instead, he said, "I stopped bringing girls home because I was thinking about you." I blinked. Me? Yeah, I don't know when it started, but it feels like every time I'm with someone else, or even when I'm just out, my mind drifts back to you. And that's confusing. I sat back, trying to digest that. I mean, Eric was straight, or at least, that's what I thought. He'd always dated women, talked about crushes on girls at work, and never given me any reason to suspect otherwise. But here he was, admitting something different, something real. I finally said, "I'm glad you told me." I was starting to feel like I was going crazy, wondering why you'd suddenly stop all that and then just watch me. He chuckled nervously. Yeah, sorry if that was creepy. I just didn't know how to say it. No, it's not creepy, I assured him. Honestly, it's kind of flattering. There was a pause, and then Eric smiled, a soft, genuine smile that I hadn't seen before. So what now? I shrugged. I don't know. But maybe we figure it out together. That night, something unspoken shifted between us. It wasn't like we suddenly became a couple or anything, at least not right away, but it was more open, more honest. The tension that had been there started to ease, replaced by this quiet curiosity. Over the next few days, Eric and I started spending more time together, but differently. We'd cook dinner, play video games, or just sit around talking late into the night. It felt natural, like discovering a new layer to a friendship I didn't realize was possible. One evening, we ended up on the roof of our apartment building, just watching the city lights. Eric was quieter than usual, and after a while he said, I always thought being honest about this kind of stuff would be harder. I looked over at him. Why? Because what if it changes everything or ruins what we have? I nodded. Yeah, I get that. But sometimes change isn't so bad. Sometimes it's what you need to really live. He smiled again, a little more confidently this time. You're pretty wise for a guy who works in accounting. I laughed. Don't let it get to your head. We stayed there for a while, just side by side, neither of us rushing to fill the silence. And in that quiet, I realized that maybe Eric's watching wasn't just about curiosity or confusion. It was about something deeper, something that neither of us had quite figured out yet. But what I did know was this. Whatever happened next, I wasn't going to run from it. Because sometimes, the best things start when you stop pretending and let yourself be seen. Even if it means stepping into the unknown with your roommate who's suddenly looking at you like you're the only person that matters. And honestly, I kind of liked it. After that night on the roof, things between Eric and me felt different, but not in some dramatic, let's jump into a relationship kind of way. It was more like we'd opened a new quiet door that neither of us was quite ready to walk through, but we both knew it was there. The next day, we fell into our usual routines. I went to work. He headed to his design studio. But the subtle undercurrent was there. Eric started texting me more during the day. Little things. Not flirtatious exactly, but thoughtful. Like, did you eat lunch? Or, how's the project going? It was like he wanted to stay connected, beyond just being roommates. One Thursday, I came home to find him sprawled on the couch, headphones on, sketchbook open. I dropped my bag by the door and said, Hey, you're in serious focus mode. He pulled off one headphone and grinned, trying to finish a client's logo before the weekend. But I'm totally distracted. Distracted by what? Me? I teased, sitting down beside him. He gave me this look, half serious, half amused. Maybe. I laughed and nudged him. Come on, man. What's really going on? He hesitated, then closed his sketchbook and set it aside. I guess I'm just trying to figure out how normal this is. Like, is it weird that I'm thinking about you all the time now? Or that I catch myself wanting to be around you more than anyone else? I felt my chest tighten a bit. Honestly, it's not weird. I think it's kind of sweet. Eric's eyes softened. I'm scared, though. Scared that if I say the wrong thing or make a move, I'll mess this up. I don't want to lose what we have, even if it's complicated. That hit home. I'd been feeling that too. The last thing I wanted was to ruin our friendship by rushing into something we weren't ready for. I reached out and gave his arm a light squeeze. We don't have to figure it all out right now. We can take it slow. Just keep being honest like this. He nodded, and for a moment, it felt like we'd agreed on some unspoken pact. Days passed, and the watching didn't stop. But it changed. It became less about quiet observation and more about shared moments. Like the time we cooked dinner together, Eric was surprisingly good with a knife, and we ended up laughing over a burnt batch of garlic bread. Or the night we stayed up watching old movies, sprawled on the couch with a blanket, neither of us paying much attention to the screen. One of those nights, Eric turned to me suddenly and asked, have you ever thought about what it'd be like if we actually dated? I blinked. To be honest, yeah, I have. His smile was small but genuine. Okay, good. Because I've been trying to figure out how to say that without freaking you out. I laughed, shaking my head. You're not freaking me out, just surprised. Surprised can be good, he said, eyes shining in the dim light of the TV. We sat there quietly for a while, both of us caught in the moment. Then came the first time we kissed. It wasn't some big cinematic event. It happened after another late-night chat, sitting on the fire escape outside our apartment. The city buzzed below us, and the air was crisp. Eric looked over at me and said, I'm tired of pretending I don't want this. And before I could think too much about it, he leaned in. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, like we were both testing the waters, but it quickly deepened, and suddenly, all the questions and fears melted away. When we pulled apart, Eric laughed nervously. So that happened. I grinned back. Yeah, and it felt pretty great. That night marked the beginning of something new, something neither of us fully understood yet, but were willing to explore. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were awkward moments, like when I caught myself overthinking every text, or wondering if Eric was second-guessing everything. And there were times when I worried about what our friends would think, or how this might change our living situation. But the more time we spent together, the more I realized that those worries were normal. More importantly, I knew I didn't want to let fear keep me from something that felt this real. One afternoon, a few weeks later, Eric and I were sitting in a coffee shop, sharing a pastry and talking about nothing and everything at once. Out of nowhere, he reached across the table and took my hand. Mark, he said quietly, thank you for being patient with me, for not running away. I squeezed his hand. I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever. He smiled, this time without any hint of nervousness. Good, because I think I'm falling for you. I felt something inside me swell, something like coming home. Me too, I said simply. And just like that, the roommate who stopped bringing girls home and started watching me became the guy the first couldn't imagine not having by my side. It's been a journey, confusing, exciting, and sometimes scary, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Because sometimes the best kind of love sneaks up on you when you least expect it, from the person you see every day in your own living room. And honestly, I think we're just getting started. After that coffee shop conversation, things between Eric and me started to feel more real, like we were stepping out from the shadows of uncertainty into something brighter and, honestly, a little scary. We were still roommates, still sharing the same apartment, but now there was this electric current beneath everything, a mix of new feelings, unspoken questions, and a kind of hope neither of us had fully acknowledged before. One evening, a couple of weeks after that confession, I got home from work to find Eric sitting on the couch, his laptop balanced on his knees, looking unusually tense. The way he glanced up when I walked in told me something was on his mind. Hey, I said, dropping my bag. Long day? He closed the laptop and nodded. Yeah, sort of. Can we talk? I sat down next to him, suddenly feeling a little nervous myself. Of course. He took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about us. About how we're navigating this whole new thing. And, well, I realized I haven't told my family yet. That hit me harder than I expected. Oh. Eric ran a hand through his hair. They're pretty traditional, and I'm not sure how they'd react. I don't want to hide this from them forever, but I'm scared of what might happen, if I'm honest. I nodded slowly, understanding the weight of that. Yeah, that's tough. I get it. Have you told your family? He asked, eyes searching mine. I hesitated. Not really. My parents are supportive in theory, but we've never talked about me dating a guy. It's still kind of an unspoken thing. Eric looked relieved, like I was carrying the same fears he was. It feels like we're in this weird limbo, having this amazing thing between us, but still hiding parts of it. I reached over and squeezed his hand. Maybe we can figure out a way to be open on our own terms, when we're ready. He smiled, the tension easing. Yeah, together. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized that love wasn't just about the butterflies or stolen kisses. It was about facing the hard stuff, the fears, the unknowns, and the challenges that came with being honest about who you are. Over the next few days, Eric and I started talking about how and when to share our relationship with others. We joked about dramatic announcements and comical reactions, But under all that was a genuine desire to live openly, to stop hiding in the shadows. One afternoon, Eric got a message from his sister inviting him to a family dinner. He looked at me uncertainly. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should tell them. I smiled, feeling proud of him. I'll be here every step of the way. The day of the dinner arrived, and Eric was a bundle of nerves. We went over what he might say, how to handle questions, and what to do if things got tense. I could tell it was weighing on him. When he left, I felt this strange mix of excitement and worry. Later that evening, Eric came back with a tired smile. They were surprised, but they were okay. Mom cried a little, but she said she just wanted me to be happy. I pulled him into a hug. That's huge. He leaned into me. Yeah, it feels like a weight lifted. That moment, more than any kiss or heartfelt talk, made me realize how far we'd come. From awkward roommates with unspoken feelings to two guys ready to face the world together. But life, of course, isn't all smooth sailing. A few days after the family dinner, we ran into one of Eric's old friends from college while grabbing groceries. The friend's reaction was complicated. Eric? Wow. I didn't know, he said, eyes flicking between us. Eric smiled politely, but looked uncomfortable. Yeah, it's new. The friend gave me a sidelong glance. So you're the guy, huh? I kept my tone friendly but firm. Yeah, and we're happy. Later, Eric admitted the encounter rattled him. It's like some people just don't get it. I pulled him close. We don't need their approval to be who we are, and that's been our mantra ever since. Finding strength in each other when the outside world feels unsure or unkind. We've also been learning to navigate the little things, like sharing space when we're both working from home, or figuring out how to celebrate anniversaries when we don't have decades of traditions to lean on. One night while we were cooking together, Eric surprised me by pulling out a small box. I know it's early, but I wanted to give you this. Inside was a simple silver ring, engraved with a tiny heart. I looked up, startled but touched. Eric, this is beautiful, he shrugged, grinning. I figured we could have our own kind of promise. No pressure, just us. I slipped the ring on and smiled. I love it. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't just a fling or a passing phase. This was something real, something worth fighting for. Sometimes I catch Eric watching me again, but now it's different. It's full of warmth, admiration, and a quiet kind of love that words can't fully capture. I don't know exactly what the future holds for us, but I do know this. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Roommates who became something more, navigating the chaos of life and love, one day at a time, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Even though things were going well, I couldn't shake this little voice in my head that kept reminding me, nothing is ever that simple, especially when it comes to figuring out feelings, relationships, and all the messy parts in between. One Friday evening, Eric and I were cooking dinner, which, if you know us, means a lot of improvising and way too many jokes about who's burning what first. We were chopping veggies when he suddenly paused, staring at me like he was about to say something important. Hey, you ever think about what happens if this, he gestured between us, doesn't work out? I stopped mid-cut and raised an eyebrow. Nope. Can't say I do. Why? He scratched the back of his neck, avoiding eye contact. I don't know. Just sometimes I get scared. Like, what if we try and it falls apart? Then what? Roommates awkwardly avoiding each other? Or worse, not even wanting to live here anymore? I exhaled slowly, realizing he was opening up a side I hadn't seen much, the side where he wrestled with the what-ifs as much as I did. Look, I said, putting the knife down and turning to face him. We're not going to have all the answers. And yeah, there's a chance it might not work out. But that's true of everything in life. If we let fear hold us back, we'd never try anything. He nodded, but I could tell the worry was still there. So what do you want to do about it? I asked. He met my gaze, a little more steady this time. I want to try. I want to see where this goes. But I also want to promise we'll be honest with each other, even when it's hard. I smiled, relief washing over me. Deal. That night after dinner, we found ourselves sprawled on the couch, lazily scrolling through playlists when Eric said, I've been thinking about how I stopped bringing girls home. I chuckled. Yeah? What about it? He rubbed the back of his head. It wasn't just because I was thinking about you. It was also because I realized I'd been trying to force a version of myself that didn't fit. I raised my eyebrow. Explain? Well, I guess I always thought I had to date girls, because that's what everyone expected. But the truth is, I was never really sure. And it scared me to admit that, even to myself. Hearing that was like a breath of fresh air. It takes guts to face that. I'm glad you're being real about it. He smiled softly. Thanks. Honestly, telling you all this has been a kind of relief. I reached over and squeezed his hand. We're in this together. A few days later, we decided to have a date night at home. Nothing fancy, just pizza and a movie marathon. But even simple moments like that felt charged with something new. Hope, maybe, or just the comfort of being with someone who actually sees you. We were halfway through the third movie when Eric paused it and turned toward me. Mark, can I ask you something? Shoot. Do you ever worry about what people think? About us? I sighed. All the time. But I try not to let it get to me. He nodded. Me too. But sometimes I feel like people expect us to be a certain way. And when we're not, they don't know what to make of it. I thought about that and said, maybe that's on them. We don't have to fit whoever's idea of normal. We just have to be us. Eric's eyes sparkled. Yeah, us. Sounds pretty good. As the weeks went on, we settled into a rhythm that felt pretty perfect. We were still roommates in the traditional sense, but also something more, partners maybe, in the slow dance of figuring out life. That didn't mean everything was easy. There were still moments of doubt. Small arguments about who forgot to buy milk, or whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. But even in those moments, there was always an undercurrent of care that made me believe this was worth it. One night, after a particularly long day at work, I flopped onto the couch, exhausted. Eric came in with 2 cups of tea and handed me one without a word. I took a sip, feeling the warmth spread through me. You're good to me, I said quietly. He shrugged but smiled. I'm just trying to keep up with you. We sat there in comfortable silence for a while. Then Eric said softly, you know, I never thought I'd find this, someone who gets me. I looked at him, the weight of that confession sinking in. Me neither. He reached over and took my hand. Thanks for sticking around. I squeezed his fingers. Always. That night, lying in bed, I realized that this, whatever this was, felt like home. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was honest, messy, and ours. Sometimes, love sneaks up on you in the quiet moments, in the stolen glances, and in the willingness to take a chance, even when the future is uncertain. And with Eric by my side, I'm ready to see where this road takes us. There was something reassuring about those quiet nights we spent together, the kind where words felt unnecessary because the space between us was filled with something deeper than conversation. Just comfort, trust, and a growing sense of belonging. But life, of course, has a way of throwing curveballs. It was a text from my best friend, Jake. Dinner tonight? Your place? Got some news. I looked up at Eric, who was already raising an eyebrow. News? Sounds serious. I shrugged, fingers tapping the screen as I typed back, Sure, come on over. Within an hour, Jake was at our door, carrying a 6-pack and his usual mischievous grin. All right, spill it, I said as we settled into the cramped living room. Jake plopped down beside me, a little more serious than usual. So, you know how you guys have been kinda quiet about your relationship? Eric and I exchanged a glance. Well, word got out at work. People are talking. I felt the floor drop a bit beneath me. Talking? Like what? Jake shrugged, taking a swig from his bottle. Just gossip. You know how it goes. But I overheard some stuff that made me think you should be prepared for some awkwardness. Eric rubbed his forehead, looking tense. Great. I put a hand on his knee. Hey, we've handled tougher stuff. Jake nodded. True, but I wanted you to know so you could brace yourselves. Later that night, Eric and I sat on the balcony, the city noise humming below us. The conversation with Jake was still swirling in my head. I hate the idea of people talking behind our backs, Eric said quietly. Makes me want to crawl under a rock. I wrapped an arm around him. I get it, but maybe it's their problem, not ours. He leaned into me. I just want us to be able to live openly without feeling like we have to hide. Me too, I said. Maybe it's time we stopped worrying about what others think and just live our truth. Eric nodded slowly. Yeah, together. The next week brought a mix of awkward encounters and surprising support. At work, a few colleagues approached me with questions, not in a mean way, but curious and cautious. I was honest, as much as I felt comfortable, and found that most people just wanted to understand. Eric had his own experiences too. One evening, his landlord stopped by unexpectedly and casually mentioned, "Heard you've got someone special living here now." Eric braced for judgment, but was met with a warm smile. As long as you're happy, that's what matters. It was a small moment, but it meant a lot. Still, the uncertainty lingered. There were days when I'd catch Eric staring off into space, and I could tell he was wrestling with something. One night, I finally asked, "What's really going on?" He sighed. "I think I'm scared. Not just of what others think, but of losing you, of messing this up." "Hey," I said, turning to face him, "we're not perfect, and we don't have to be. But I'm not going anywhere." He gave me a shaky smile. "Promise?" "Promise." That night we fell asleep tangled up in each other, and I realized that love isn't about having all the answers. It's about choosing to face the unknown together, hand in hand. A few weeks later, Eric surprised me with tickets to a local art exhibit. One of his favorite artists was showing new work. I wasn't expecting much, but the night turned out to be one of the best we'd had in a long time. Walking through the gallery, Eric's face lit up as he explained the pieces, passion shining in his eyes. I found myself falling for him all over again. Not just the guy I had started dating, but the person unafraid to be himself in front of me. Halfway through the evening, Eric stopped in front of a striking painting, a swirl of blues and reds, chaotic but beautiful. "This one," he said softly, "reminds me of us. Messy, uncertain, but full of life." I reached for his hand. "Yeah, and I wouldn't want it any other way." On the way home, we held hands tightly, the city lights blurring past the window. The world felt big and unpredictable, but in that moment, with Eric beside me, it felt like we could take on anything. Back at the apartment, as we settled in for the night, Eric looked over at me. "You know, I never expected this." "Expected what?" "This. Us. But I'm so glad it's real." I smiled, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "Me too." As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about how far we'd come. From roommates with unspoken feelings to partners daring to be vulnerable. Yeah, the road ahead might get rocky, and people might talk, but we had something worth fighting for. And honestly, that felt like the best kind of crazy. Months have passed since that art exhibit night, and life has settled into a comfortable rhythm. Not perfect, but ours. Eric and I have learned to navigate the blend of roommates and partners, figuring out what works and what doesn't. Sometimes stumbling, but always catching each other. One quiet Sunday afternoon, we sat on the floor of our living room, surrounded by stacks of photo albums and old mementos. I pulled out a picture of us from the first week we moved in. Two awkward guys tossing boxes, trying to act like they knew what they were doing. We laughed, remembering how clueless we were. Eric looked at me, eyes soft. "Remember when I used to bring random girls home all the time?" I grinned. "Yeah, and now you're the one who never leaves the apartment without checking if I'm around." He shrugged playfully. "Guess I never really stopped watching you." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "And I'm glad you did." We sat like that for a while, just holding hands and soaking in the quiet comfort we'd built together. Later that evening, Eric surprised me with a small, homemade dinner. Nothing fancy, a simple pasta dish with garlic bread, but the effort behind it made it feel special. As we ate, he said, "I've been thinking about us, about how much this has changed me." I smiled, curious. "I'm not just talking about dating or coming out. I mean, you've helped me stop pretending to be someone I'm not, to be honest with myself and with others." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "You've done that for me too." He reached across the table and took my hand again. "I don't know what the future holds, Mark, but I know I want you in it." And in that moment, everything felt clear. The fear, the uncertainty, the awkward beginnings, all worth it for the kind of honesty and connection we'd found. I looked him in the eye and said, "I want that too, more than anything." He smiled, real, unguarded, and leaned over to kiss me softly. When we pulled apart, I realized that what started as a roommate's curious watching had grown into something deeper, something genuine. Not a whirlwind romance or some perfect fairy tale, but something real, messy, and utterly ours. Sometimes love doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, in shared glances and small acts of kindness. And sometimes it's the person you never expected who becomes your home. As I sit here now, thinking about how far we've come, I feel grateful for the awkward moments, the late-night talks, the fears we faced, and most of all, for Eric. Because love isn't about having it all figured out. It's about choosing each other, again and again, every single day. And that's exactly what we're doing.